older brother or sister, you know that you are constantly compared to that sibling. For the Ottawa GGs, the last 15 years have been spent getting compared to the Carleton Ravens. Now, the Ravens have had much more success than the GGs, with 10 championships in 12 years at the national level. But this year, the tides may have turned. Ottawa finally beat the Ravens in the regular season before losing the second matchup, and they come into the CIS Final 8 as the number 3 seed in the tournament. I sat down with Ottawa GG's head coach James Derouin to discuss what it means to be told that you are never good enough compared to your crosstown rival. I am here with Ottawa U men's basketball head coach James Derouin. Coach, it's been a long season, long training camp, I'm sure. Christmas break, exams, finally at the big dance. Does it feel like it's time to go?
Yeah, pretty amazing. You know, it's August 9th we played Indiana.
Right.
You know, I mean, and that was a big deal when we played those guys and were able to beat them. And you know, now we're March 11th. You know, so I mean, what a long journeys. Things like that seem ages ago. You know, even the team that we're playing, Bishops, we played them in our preseason in our tournament in October, and same thing. It seems like it almost feels like another season ago. And you know what? That's part of that's part of the challenge for men's and women's basketball throughout the season. It's just the length of everything and keeping everybody together and healthy. And we're here, and you know, we're thrilled about that.
When you go through such a long season, especially a season where you've had more success than your program has ever had in the regular season, I know you have a veteran group, but it does take a lot of work to keep that entire group motivated and ready to work and on track. Has that been something you've battled with at all this season, or has it just been a group that's so in tune with who they are that they've worked?
No, it's something that we battled with, you know, throughout the season. You know, I mean, the record obviously doesn't necessarily show it because, you know, we were able to win the games, but that battle, constant battle, you know, knowing that a potential wild card, ironically, right? That's the way it ended up. You know, was potentially on the line with Ryerson hosting and having the automatic that we might have to fight for a wild card. And you know, you look at our scores, and you know, one week you're like, wow, they great, and then the next week you're, you know, that was a closer than I expected type of deal. And that, if anything, that would be how I define our season. That challenge for me and for the leaders on the team, and to keep that, you know, high level of consistency, that high level of intensity up throughout the entire season. And I think we did an okay job, but I mean, we did it enough for us to be able to lock that wild card in at a record. And you know, all the stress that went along with it, it turned out to be worth it because you know, the sleepless nights over teams that you should beat. You know, one slip up, and you know, you might put a wild card or your season, a great season, at risk. And that's, you know, what coaches, you know, stress about, right? And people always are saying like, well, you know, don't worry about it. You know, like, you guys are gonna kill these guys. And and then sure enough, looks what happens. You know, we lose to a really strong Windsor team who got really hot at the end of the season, and you know, we had to depend on the wild card to get here. So you know, pretty glad that you know, that we did stress over that stuff. And you know, I think that's a challenge, you know, in this league, like we said, because of the length and because of the strength of the OUA and all those things.
You talk about comparing scores and making sure that, you know, week to week, and I went through it in football, being a very good football program at McMaster. Every single week we were told, you're playing this team, you have to beat them by this much or that much, otherwise it's not deemed a success, despite the fact that you're still an extremely successful program. Everything that you do, whether it's in major media or otherwise, is compared to Carleton. And I'm not going to, because I don't want to have that conversation with you.
That.
Yeah, because it's been said way too much, in my opinion, and it's been tied to you so much. But what I do want to know is, does that wear on your team at all? Always being told you're number 2 despite getting a win? I mean, the great rivalries come when one team gets a win, right? It's not a rivalry until the other team wins. But it's a real rivalry now, right? And it's not everything that you guys do has to be attached to their success. Question.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly wears on us a little bit, you know, real low point. And again, like, the expectation levels of yourself or your coaching staff or even people outside in the media of your team, you know, really can only dictate what your team does. You know, that doesn't mean that, you know, if McMaster football is playing, you know, Guelph, and, you know, you're supposed to beat them by so many points. Well, you know, Guelph has something to say about that as well, right? If they play great and then they, you know, they execute everything perfectly and they have that game, and you know, that's where I find it to be, you know, I don't know what word is like, it's disrespectful to the fact that there's two teams out there, right? So, you know, when we played Queens and, you know, we beat them by 10 the night after, I think Carleton beat them by 50 or 60. And, you know, Queens played a great game and they made shots and you know, they had a senior night and all these things and they did some great things that night. And we weren't particularly great, but again, that's sometimes, you know, the other team has something to say or to contribute to the game, right? And it does wear on you, you know, expectations. Not so much necessarily about Carleton, but you know, it's now you're winning and now you're not winning by enough, you know. It's and then the next week you beat you know, a team by enough, Nipissing, let's say, and then by 50, and they're like, oh well, they're not very good.
Right.
And you're like,
yeah, it's never good enough.
Right.
That's always, like, well, that's always the issue.
And you know, and we battled with that. Like, we as a team talked about it. You know, the players even expressed it throughout the season that, you know, if it was a close game, then they didn't play well. If it was a blowout, the other team wasn't strong. So they're like, when is it that we do what we're supposed to do?
When you receive all of that outside pressure where it's never good enough, how much of your core leadership group, your Johnny, your Caleb, have to ring in the rest of the guys and say, listen, we are all that we have, and nothing outside of this room matters.
Right. And you know, it's funny, I went out after the Queens game, I came in and was ready to, you know, and Johnny was having that conversation with the team. It makes no difference what happened. What they do is what they do. In the end, we're going to have to play each other. And we'll decide it then. We're not going to decide it today, you know, versus other teams. And, you know, and also that falls on the coaching staff as well. Like, we talked a lot about me. I didn't want my team, you know, they were 36-3 last year, 29-2 this year. And I didn't want us to be a miserable 29-2 team, right? Because we talked about it already. We talked about the grind of the season and how long it is. And if you're 29-2 and it's still not good enough, and you know, they're bad, and you didn't win by enough, and all this stuff, well, man, that season's going to feel even longer, right? And like, it's nice. It's okay to say, hey, you know, you guys are 18-1. You guys had the best record in the OUA. You should be proud of that. You should, you know, take a weight off your shoulder. We're going to be hosting Final Four, and you know, all those good things that come from it. You're allowed to. You're not celebrating it like a national championship, but it's okay sometimes to not be. You know, it's not always not enough. And we try. I try to make it as clear as possible to our guys that I didn't want a bunch of, you know, sad faces and miserable guys at 29-2, right? Like, and because and especially that's not necessarily, you know. That may not work for other teams, but for us, what's important about that is that that's when we are at our best. Is that when we're loose and when we're in a, you know, a good frame of mind. That's our group, and you see us play. We're playing together and we're sharing the ball. And
that bronze medal game, right?
Right.
In the third quarter there, where you start to flow and feel like you're
and I mean that's and that's who we are. So it's not necessarily that one way is a right way or another way. It's just that I know my team and I know what we need, and so I need them to feel at some point they need to be positive and they need to feel good about what they're doing. And not just because they should be proud of it, but because I think that's going to translate to a better performance for us on the court. And it's been a challenge this year keeping that, you know, and at times I've been frustrated with our group. And but, you know, even me, I got to keep that. I got to keep reminding myself, like, hey, you know, these guys are doing okay, right? Like, you know, there's probably a few teams that wouldn't mind being in your shoes, and before you start belittling, you know, other people's performances, you should probably take a step back and put it in perspective. And, you know, these are the types of seasons you know, you dream about as a coach. And not just enjoy it, but make sure that there's a balance between positive reinforcement as well as the fact that yes, we still need to get better. We still need to get better in certain areas, and I think we've done an okay job with that. And you know, now it all sort of comes to a head here this weekend. So we'll see. We'll see if we're playing our best basketball when it matters most.
When 5 p.m. comes on Sunday, and you are possibly hoisting a first championship 5 years in here after massive improvement, 11-11 in your first season.
Yeah.
What would go through your mind when the buzzer went off?
Oh man, you know, whenever we have big wins like the Wilson Cup last year and stuff, my first thought is always to the alumni and you know, because I played here and all the guys that I played with, and you know, we were still sort of a weaker sort of program, and you know, Coach DeVere, the things that he was able to do. Greg Sands and Marcos and you know, Josh Gibson basketball, the guys that were just, you know, I get text messages and emails and everything from all those guys, the 92, 93 team that were all at the Wilson Cup last weekend. Like,
Asking for tickets.
Asking for tickets, and yeah. And, that's my first thought, because, everyone sort of has a championship to hang their hat on. McMaster football, Carleton basketball, St. FX basketball, the 2000 teams. They kind of have that, and we've been such a good program, and our alumni, they've been so supportive, and in our city, obviously, it's, you're constantly, measured up against, and even a silver medal and a gold medal last year is still like, you read the stuff on the internet, and it's like, oh, you got to win it to be in the conversation. It's like,
the internet was mean?
Well,
that's shocking.
I don't read a lot of it. I try not to, but even comments on even some other people that are close. You know what I mean? It's amazing, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I think last year was, I don't think that only one team out of 44 had a successful season. That's the way the sports media has now tailored everything. That if you don't win the Super Bowl, it was a disappointment. If you don't win the World Series, you were garbage. And that leaves a lot of unhappy teams, right? Like, and I get everyone's goal is to win the championship, but I don't think you can take away, and when we lost in the finals last year, that was, I was obviously, extremely emotional and disappointed, but, that was the message I wanted to get to them. This is not, last year's team broke every record that we had, and then this year's team has done some great things as well. But, that's where my thought would go to, is just all the people that have supported me. I've gotten, especially once things started to get rolling for us a little bit, all the alumni come out of the woodwork. But that's great, like, and because I am an alumni too, and I'm passionate about our school and our program, and I just know that, they would all be so proud, and I want to see guys that wearing Gigi's gear that used to play here and stuff, and we've had a great run. We've been at the Nationals. This is 3 years in a row. Date coach Derouin went 4 years out of his 9. That's 7 years in the last 12. Man, it would be just a great feeling to cap that off with. I saw the profile today on the CIS Instagram. Yeah. And it's like, Johnny 23 and coach and all this stuff, and it's like championship 0 in the top right, and it's just like, I just, even if there's one there, you can hang your hat on that, and I just love to see that. So.
Yeah, well, it's a great conversation to have. I appreciate you taking the time. I know we're no Tim and Sid that you were with today on the air as well, but we really do appreciate you taking the time out to talk with us about what makes you tick a little bit ahead of a major championship for you, and we wish you all the best of luck, and I know you have a lot of alumni and other people that will be cheering for you, so really appreciate the time.
All right, thanks for having me.
You can follow along all weekend along on @OUA Today and @OUA Sport as well for all of your Ottawa GG's updates throughout the CIS Final 8.